on that.
The broadcast is live.
There it is. Alrighty, welcome to this episode of Trending in Hollywood. There was a lot of news this week. And, Demetri and I were talking about this, and we probably could have done the entire show just on Monday's news alone, but we decided to break up the news a little bit more, and we got some different stories to kind of talk about and whatnot throughout the week. All right, Demetri. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be sharing my screen throughout the show, basically talking about the articles, and then we'll go back to us talking. So we're gonna start off with our first story of the episode, which is going to be something that kind of dropped yesterday, and it's something that Demetri has a lot to say about, and that, of course, is this: Quiet Place 2, Mission Impossible 7. To debut on Paramount Plus 45 days after theatrical launch. This was we believe this was reported by the Hollywood Reporter before everyone else jumped onto it. Demetri, let's go to you. What's your initial thoughts after reading this story?
It caught me by surprise, and it made me think a lot. Like, 45 days is not an awful lot of time. It's really a month and a half, roughly, when you think about it, right? So when you're talking movies like Mission Impossible and even Quiet Place, so they're big tentpole kind of movies, right? So my first thoughts were the rental agreements that they have with exhibitors, and I don't know what they're working out at this point, because the way that it usually goes, just a quick primer, refresher course, the studios have a quote-unquote rental fee. The exhibitors, AMC, Cinemark, and the like, they rent the movie at a certain percentage point. The bigger the tentpole movie, the higher percentage point, especially in those early opening weeks, goes back to the studio. The exhibitor really doesn't start to make good money off of a movie until later on in weeks, okay? And that's usually, and again, it depends on the movie, depends on the studio, but if it's a hammer film, like a Mission Impossible 7, which you know could play many weeks, the exhibitor will start to bring in their money starting on, like, say, the third week, fourth week, fifth week, sixth week, whatever the deal is. The first 2 weeks or so usually go, a lot of it's like a 90-10 split, and 90% goes to the studio. So this is roughly 6 weeks, 45 days, give or take, if that. And that's right around the time where an exhibitor would start making good money, because you know that a movie like Mission Impossible is still going to be playing fairly well. It's still going to be within the top 3 of the box office top 10 for the week, and that's when they start making money. When you throw that in with the concessions and all that stuff.
Whoa, Demetri, what? You think that a movie like Quiet Place is going to be in the top 3 45 days after it's released?
Dude, just look at your history. Look at your history. Look at your history. How much did Quiet Place make? If they pulled Quiet Place the first Quiet Place, if they pulled that out after 45 days, theaters would have not made the money that they made off it, because that movie was a sleeper. And this is my point. A movie like A Quiet Place, a movie like a Mission Impossible 7, those movies they last. People continue to go to them. All right, so what? If it's not in the top 3, it's in the top 5. I mean, Quiet Place had a good run. We could look that up right now. It had a good run at the box office. I'm looking it up
as we're talking, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So then when you look at a Mission Impossible, same thing. It makes a good run. So 45 days, and basically, I don't know, maybe there's a new model so that the exhibitor can get some existing monies. But an exhibitor isn't going to want to play a movie while it's streaming. And even if they do, it's gonna drop because people will stream. So I'm just curious. I just like to know what the model is, because to me it seems like the exhibitor, there's going to be money left on the table that the exhibitor's not going to get. So, right. So that to me is my big thing.
And it's funny because I think here's what the problem is and why I reacted so negatively to what you just said, is that what we usually always focus on in the industry, and this is the problem, right, is that we focus on that opening box office number.
Correct.
And then like something else is coming out the week after.
Correct.
So the focus shifts. So let's say Quiet Place 2 opens and then Black Widow opens the following week.
Mm-hmm.
The industry, in a weird way, sort of stops talking about Quiet Place, except for box office reporting, right? When the reports come out on Sunday, then all of a sudden we hear a lot of conversation about that.
Correct.
But throughout the week, it's kind of like, all right, last week was Quiet Place week. This week we're talking about Black Widow. So when you originally said that, I'm kind of saying to myself, that's not, like there's no freaking way that the movie would be out. But to your point and to your credit, I'm going through, I literally am on IMDb Pro. I have an account. And I'm running through here from the day that Quiet Place opened all the way up to day, let's see, 60. It was in ranks number 10. So it went from 1 to 10, and that is in 60 days' time.
60 days, yeah. And mind you, your 60 days' time would be 30 days less than the 90-day handshake that they have, right? The 90-day handshake window that's currently, well, let's just say it's currently in place, but currently being broken. 60 days to me, that's 2 months to you and me, seems to be a better, would seem to be a better number. 45 days, that's 15 days less. A lot happens in 15 days. You don't know what is going to go, you don't know what your competition is going to be. And again, a movie like A Quiet Place, when that came out, if you remember, nobody thought the movie was going to do what it did. That movie was really big for Paramount.
Dude, I'll never forget that day. I remember I saw it at South by Southwest. I sat down with the writers the day after I saw it. And I said to them, this is going to be huge. And they're like, no, it's not. And it's like, it's not. I'm like, it is going to be huge. And lo and behold, it is huge. And I mean, the fact that we have this second movie that hasn't even come out, and they're already talking about developing a third one, goes to show you that this is now a franchise.
Absolutely.
And they're going to keep building upon it because there's so much world building that they can do. And it's so easy because you can shift the focus from the characters. They found someone new. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the trailer. They find someone new in the second one. So that's all it is. They can just keep going and find someone new every movie, and there you go.
Yeah, no, and then the other thing that I thought of, okay, so then I'm thinking about a Mission Impossible 7, right? Now there are bonus guarantees on box office that Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie get when they hit certain milestones in box office.
Yeah.
If your movie is starting to come out of theaters 45 days in, that box office is going to go down, and those bonuses may not, I'm not saying they may not be achieved where otherwise somebody like a Tom Cruise or Christopher McQuarrie, they would be kind of expecting them because Mission Impossible 7 is going to play on and on. So then that was my other thought. How does the studio get out of that? To my knowledge, according to the article, it didn't appear as if they'd spoken to any of these people. It was almost like the Warner Brothers deal when Warner Brothers says, we're releasing everything on HBO Max for a year. And everyone's like, So It's really fascinating to me. And also, where I'm surprised, this also came with the launch of Paramount Plus. Again, I don't get why these studios, they all follow each other. Like, do you have to call it Paramount Plus? Like, Disney starts Paramount Plus, Apple Plus, Paramount Plus. Everything's got a plus at the end of it. Just call it something else.
Well, you know what it is I think it's like when you have a name, it's branding, right? I mean, it's the branding. It's like Netflix, Netflix had as a company went from being the company where you would send DVDs in the mail.
Yep.
To being like the dominant streaming service. And it'll be a very, very long time, if ever, before they kind of put down that title. That's going to be their title pretty much for forever. Unless something really happens and like some bunch of controversy comes out to them and people leave, but I don't think so. No. But I mean, the Disney Plus, Hulu Plus, I mean, what is with the plus symbols? Like,
I don't get it.
And it's dumb from a marketing point of view, right? Like, so when you look at a Disney Plus, and they sometimes spell it out, sometimes they use the plus sign. Mm-hmm. Decide what you're going to do, please. Like, I think it's weird, but also when you're like see them on sites, though. No, think about it from an SEO standpoint.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
No, I mean, from a marketing standpoint, look. If I were Disney, I'd kind of be flattered at the same time. I'd be pissed because Disney Plus was how
did it before Disney.
I don't remember Apple Plus. Oh, you could be right. Did Apple announce before Disney? Then I would be pissed if I were Apple because that's a marketing thing. But see, Disney kind of stole that because I didn't know that, to be honest. So
Apple TV Plus launched on November 1st, 2009. Disney Plus, I believe, was right after that, wasn't it?
2009, did you say?
Oh, I'm sorry.
2019.
2019. Wow. So Disney Plus literally was on the 12th. So Apple did technically have that first.
Technically, yeah. But Disney Plus announced. But they announced a long time ago.
So did Apple. Apple was a big talk for a while. Oh, yeah.
Because I remember Disney Plus kind of announcing at whenever the last D23 was.
Yeah.
And if you were a D23.
Kind of announced around the same time.
Yeah. In any case, there's too many pluses. So, we got pluses and now there are going to be minuses because I'll tell you this. I ain't signing up for Paramount Plus. We got there's so many damn streaming services now. And I understand, I get it, but for all those people who are cutting the cord, you're going to be paying for yet another streaming service. And not that $4.99 is not affordable, but if you think it's going to stay at $4.99, and that's the base. That's the base. So that means you get commercials with stuff or whatever. I think it's $9.99 for the Plus Premier or whatever they're calling it. If you think it's going to stay $99 or $4.99, yeah, you actually thought that Netflix was going to stay at $9.99 when it first came out, at $5.99,
right?
And they're up to $15 now.
Well, here's the funniest part, right? So, like at the end of the day, and you've talked about this numerous times over the years on various shows that we've done together. Mm-hmm. It's funny. Everyone has talked about cutting the cord and doing that, but I will tell you, the one benefit. And this is not discussed because a lot of people don't want to discuss this. Mm-hmm. The one benefit of streaming services over something like a DirecTV or cable is that they can be shared. So HBO Max, for example, for $15 a month, and I think it allows you to connect up to 4 accounts. So like where you can have it for 4 different profiles.
Right.
So from my point of view, I share that with my friend Michael. So when you take that and you say, all right, that $14 a month just became $7 a month, it's shrunk in half. And there's actually people who actually split. Another example of this is a YouTube TV account where you can have 6 people onto that one. So if you have 6 people, it's $50 a month, and you cut that. So essentially, you are almost spending the same amount as cable. But I think what the difference is here is that you're getting more and more content and stuff that you personally can select, and you can work with friends and be like, hey, they have the Discovery app. Do you like Discovery? Yeah, you like Discovery. So you split it, and it's like a small portion. And I think that's what people who are smart are doing. They're signing up for all these services, but they're not doing it as individually. Like, it's like, hey man, I'll get the HBO Max, you get the Disney Plus, we'll share the logins, and that's it. And that happens. I mean, families, that's the big issue with Netflix, right? That's like so many people share their Netflix passwords.
But they ended up cutting that down.
They did.
Or strike that, reverse it. They ended up raising their price to, if you want to share with 6 people, it's, I don't know, I think it's almost $20 or something. I could be wrong. I don't know.
If you think of that, and this is what the building blocks is, and this is something that cable, why they're sort of a thing of the past, is the fact that they don't have that option. They don't have that option where you allow someone to create, you know what I mean? Like, where you can create an account and you share it with people. So therefore, it's like having a pot on the table, right? And you're going all in for a potluck dinner, and you're like, all right, where are we going to eat? I don't know. Hey, let's throw $10 into the pot. Okay, we can get Disney Plus now. John said he'll do 20. You throw that in. Right. So you kind of get a bunch of people together, and that's what it is, right? So it's weird in a weird way that we're talking about this, because we always talk about the theatrical experience. But I think a lot of people collectively are coming together to support the streaming services. It's just that they're not watching this stuff together, which is so weird to think about.
It is, but then I also have to wonder, one of these days, a Disney or somebody's going to wise up and go, well, if John has it and he's sharing his thing, because it's like, why aren't we getting Peter's money? Like, we want his money too. Like, I don't know. Personally, one of the reasons I don't cut my cord is because I find it hard to part with my Turner Classic Movies, which I'm on like daily. Yeah. So, I get the whole streaming thing. And as you said it, yeah, you're right. You know, I think the sharing is. I'm not entirely convinced that the studios, like a Disney especially, really appreciate you sharing.
Well,
I don't think
I'm sure they don't. I'm sure they don't. Yeah. But the reality of it is, if they want me to get on board with every one of their services, I'm going to. But I'm not going to generate $100 bill for myself a month. I'm going to basically say, like, hey, Michael, hey, you know, my brother. You know, I basically say, like, hey, Jared, I'm going to sign up for Netflix. You want to split the cost with me? And yeah. Or he'll be like, okay, how about you get Netflix and I'll get this?
Right.
And that's it's weird, because we started doing that. I started doing that with a couple of friends over the last year. I mean, Demetri, even me, right? I give it to you. You're like, I don't have Shudder. I'm like, you want my login so you can watch Shudder?
Sure.
And that's kind of like the way that this is going.
I guess. I just never, okay. You were kind enough to do that, but I only used it that one time. Like, I don't go on. I mean, because,
I'll be honest, you're a rarity, because my Netflix account is used by us. It's used by Ashley's family, her sister, her mom, family. And her brother. So, like, it's literally like there's multiple people watching it in multiple households.
Right. I get it. It was just for that one movie. I'm not a person that I want to take advantage, and I don't want to potentially get you in trouble. You know, Netflix, you can buy up to like 6 devices to do. So,
well, that's what it is with most of these services. Yeah. I think they're built on the idea that it's not going to be a single use. I don't think and if it was, they would do like they do at the film festivals, right? So Sundance basically allowed me to log into the app on my TV. And I could not watch Sundance movies anywhere else unless I was watching it directly from their browser. I couldn't go down to my downstairs TV and watch it downstairs. I had to watch it on that one Apple TV device, and that was it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So they know, and they have the ability to do it, because if Sundance was able to do it,
Sure.
Netflix can do it, Apple can do it. They're far superior in terms of the apps and creativity behind the scenes.
Absolutely. They'll just charge you more. But I want to just bring it back to, like, I guess, again, my thoughts about the 45-day window is, look, I'd written an article early on about these windows collapsing. I personally feel that they shouldn't go by days. They should go by the strength of the movie. This way everybody wins. Like, so there should be an agreement about a location count, okay? And once a movie begins to lose steam, they have like an agreement. Like, if it gets below 1,000 locations or 1,200 locations, whatever, I don't know. But do it by location, and then once it breaches that point where they feel that they've made enough and they're not leaving money's on the table. You know, that's the other thing too, Scott, is that the studio ends up leaving money on the table for themselves. And you never know about that sleeper hit, like Quiet Place, or even a movie like Invisible Man.
Right.
So the studio ends up losing out too, because when you have a quiet, I'm willing to bet that the rental terms on that weren't the same like a Mission Impossible 7. So the longer it plays out, it's a win-win for the studio. It's a sleeper hit and for the exhibitor, and everybody's happy. So if you go by a location count that's agreed upon, and then when it goes to streaming, they also allow the AMCs who have their apps to play said movie, let's just say Quiet Place 2, on their app so they can get some money. But this greed and this antagonistic symbiotic relationship between exhibitor and distributor, I wish they would just work together to figure out this problem. And in all honesty, don't go by days. Go by location counts. And I tell you, it'll be fairer. And then that way, it mitigates if you have a sleeper hit. If A Quiet Place is doing really well in its 45th, 50th day, you said it's still in the top 10. Then everybody's making money off of that movie at that point. And then once it reaches a threshold that's agreed upon between the exhibitor and distributor, then you could start taking it down, putting it up on your streaming app. Of course, the only thing that affects, but independent movies really aren't affected by that, because the studio, like an A24, they're not going to abide by a 45-day window, because their movie, like a Hereditary, that could play throughout the entire summer in art house films or arc lights. You know what I'm saying? These are just the big studios that I just wish that they would work better together, because there's monies for all. And we're coming out of this pandemic, and I want a feeling of normalcy to come in, and that could happen with the vaccines, but I want to be able to go to the movies. And I think the industry, instead of like having this schism, just start to work together a little bit, because we all know everybody took a hit. Exhibitors took a hit. Teetering bankruptcy, studios took a hit.
Yeah. So,
I don't know, just work together. Let's come out of this pandemic and go, all right, let's go back to the movies.
Well, here's my take on this whole thing, and then we'll move on from the topic. I sort of feel right now everyone's kind of showing, throwing shit at the wall and hoping that it sticks. They have no idea. The HBO Max deal was like a huge deal at the time, and we talked about this in previous episodes, where certain movies I think work best on a date, theater, and then go into streaming. Other movies you really want to see on the big screen. They deserve the big screen experience. So I agree with you. I think what the problem right now is that everyone's looking at their bottom line. They're kind of saying by day 45, realistically, most movies are going to be dropping out of the top 10. And when they drop out of the top 10, therefore they don't get any sort of kind of like write-ups in box office, like even in the box office stuff. So they sort of become like lesser and lesser, and they drop and drop. And they made the bulk of their money during that time in that 45-day period. Again, always exceptions to the rules when you have like an Avengers Endgame or something like that, where people go back and watch it over and over again.
Sure.
However, I would say that a good 70% of theatrical studio releases slowly start dropping within the 40 to 50-day mark.
Oh, no argument.
All the research I was just doing when you were talking.
Yeah.
So I think they're looking at it as, okay, how do we make this a win for the theaters where they and this is problem is it's just not a conversation. No one isn't that the problem with this world in general, is that no one knows how to communicate, and they sit down in a room and like, help me help you, right? Help me help you. Let me figure out how to do this.
And again, maybe I misinterpreted everything that the National Association of Theater Owners was standing for standing up for the theaters. But to my knowledge, well, we know for a fact that Warner Brothers had no conversation with anybody.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I can't say necessarily the same for Paramount, other than they announced Paramount Plus when all this news came out. The other person the other entity that this kind of really hurts are the Buck houses. Okay, so the Buck houses, those are the discount houses. Those are the ones, like, they're sort of kind of aftermarket. It's been playing out. They get it. Play the movie for more or less like a flat fee at that point. So, but the studio can make onwards and upwards of over $100,000+ which I know right now it doesn't seem like, in the grand scheme of things, like a ton of money. But when your location counts are getting smaller, that $100,000 or plus can end up reaching that bonus point. Like, as a person who tracked grosses, those Buck houses contributed. Like, you always wanted to the very last day, like until you finally said, we're going to stop reporting grosses on this movie. You just let that cycle go through. This could end up hurting them, and we'll have more of those kind of theaters.
Those theaters were already a dying breed to begin with. I mean, I remember growing up and having so many of those theaters in New Jersey, New York, and they slowly started going away as I was growing up. And I mean, even out here in the movie capital of the world, there's not that many of them. And they're really, the few that they have are in really, I hate to say this, underprivileged areas. That's where they seem like, there's one in North Hollywood that's like in like the most like undesirable area of North Hollywood. And I went there a few times, and like, that's part of a bigger conversation about movie ticket pricing being too much, and how certain families only have the opportunity to see a movie on the big screen if it goes to a theater like that. Again, much larger conversation. Don't want to get into that today, but I think it's important to talk about, like, the fact that those sorts of theaters are gone. I mean, for the most part. I mean, there's probably like what would you say, 5 to 10% of most theaters are in that realm at this point, and that might
perhaps.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's since you said location. I mean, you are correct to an extent. Like, throughout the country, those theaters in the Midwest and stuff, they do really well. Because sometimes people will just wait it out. Or sometimes people will choose to see the movie for an 8th time at a Buck house. That's how they make their money. So, But here's the thing too, movies that we know historically that do really well and can last a long time are kids movies, right? So I understand our theaters here in Los Angeles, which I think we might talk a little bit next. All things being said, a movie like Tom and Jerry probably would have done fairly well. Like, those movies don't necessarily have to rely on reviews to get families to go out. And since Tom and Jerry is kind of a brand already, that movie would have done fairly well this weekend, I believe, had it like under normal circumstances, no pandemic, no COVID, that Tom and Jerry would have opened and probably would have done fairly well for Warner Brothers, regardless of reviews, because it's something the families can take the kids to. So, anyways.
No, I agree with you with that. And I think families are a different conversation, but I also feel like that's who's driving so much of the streaming service. I mean, it's so many families. Like, I mean, when we talked about in our previous conversations about Disney Plus and the streaming services, for a family to buy those things, it's a no-brainer. It becomes an entertainment for them, and it's like $10 a month. Holy shit, this is worth it. I can set the kid in front of the TV all day and give them a bowl of popcorn or some Oreos, and they're good to go.
Yeah.
So shifting gears over to this conversation, more Hollywood studios start to conceal box office grosses.
Yes.
So a lot of talk about movie theaters today. It's going to be a big focal point of this show, if you can't tell.
Right.
We saw this Warner Brothers again paved the way, right? Paved the way.
They did. They paved the way, all right.
When they started saying that they didn't want to report the numbers for Tenet.
After about 2 weeks, was it?
Yeah. When it opened here and they saw how low those numbers were, they were like, nope.
Yeah. No. It was a mistake. It was a mistake to start reporting numbers. They wanted. I get it. I get it. But there's nobody, when you're surrounded by people who only say yes, it's not a good idea. Like, I get it. Release Tenet, but you didn't have to release, it just, you couldn't have expected that movie, or any movie for that matter, like, that it was going to do really well. That people were going to go out to the theaters. So they literally stopped. Like, they thought that they would be thumping their chest going, they wanted the headline, Warner Brothers brings movie theater going back.
Yep.
With this great gross on Christopher Nolan's Tenet. Or if they want to, it could have read Christopher Nolan brings movies back. But it didn't. And they ended up with egg in their face.
Yeah.
And I think that also steered their way, charted their path to the HBO Max statement that they came out a little bit later in the summer. I'm not surprised. I mean, nobody cares.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say this. Like, I'm a guy that tracked this stuff. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Because these are not normal times. You can't go out. If a tentpole like Tenet tanks, I mean, what else do you have? Like, you can't rest on a No Time to Die.
No, I think the problem with, right now, and I mean, it takes away a job, right? Like, so at the end of the day, there's a bunch of people, one of the members of our organization, entire job is to pretty much write articles based around box office. Mm-hmm. And Scott Mendelson loves to beat a dead horse. Like, he literally can take a movie like Avengers Endgame and somehow for 60 days can probably put out 2 or 3 articles a week about box office tying to Avengers Endgame. And I don't know how the hell he does it. Kudos to him. It's a craft. It's a specialty. Lots of clickbait, by the way. No disrespect, but I know he knows that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who require that as part of their job, and therefore they don't have that job when studios are not showing their earnings, which
Right.
also turns back, and it's almost like we're starting to have parallel conversations all the time now, because it
Right.
also goes back to um, streamers and basically not disclosing what something means when they say this had billions upon billions of views this weekend. Like, what does that mean for you
Yeah.
at the end of the day? Like, what is that bottom line? What does that translate into? What's the dollar amount for that? So there's a lot of changes in the industry, and I think
Absolutely.
everyone is really, really afraid. I was actually on, I don't know if you know this new app, but there was an app called Clubhouse, which
Oh yeah.
a couple
I've heard of Clippers.
weeks ago, and I mean it's become this huge phenomenon overnight.
Yes.
And I was part of an industry conversation a few days ago, and we were talking about this very topic, about too much content. Will movie theaters survive? Is streaming going to be the death? Yada yada yada. Is it here to stay? And the bottom line is, streaming is here to stay. I think it's 100%.
Absolutely.
If you're someone who's like, that streaming is never going to take off, it's not going to work, people are going to be over it, you're wrong. I think it's proven itself. There's no reason why so many studios would invest so much time, effort, and money into it if it wasn't here to stay. And that
Right.
being said, the theatrical, and part of the conversation that we had during this was, theaters need to do something to make it an experience again. And studios need to work with theaters to make that experience. And whether that means sending the stars out to, like they did with Captain Marvel, where they send Brie Larson all over the freaking United States handing out popcorn or doing something like that. It's time for studios and movie theaters to work together and get creative.
Yeah, and yeah, and
they need
I agree. But it has to be mutual, right? Because a lot changed. And by that I mean, now exhibitors force studios to pay for their trailer placement.
Yeah.
Oh, you want us to promote your movie? Oh, well, why doesn't the studio buck up the money and costume all of our staff with Captain Marvel t-shirts?
Yeah.
And branded AMC. So, there comes a time when you gotta go, exhibitor, hey, people don't come to your theater for the popcorn. As good as your popcorn may be, that's not why they're coming. They're coming because we're putting butts in seats. The studio doesn't get money for concessions. The studio doesn't get money for the advertising that's played on the screen, too, by the ways. So whether it's Screen Vision or NCM, the only reason why that screen has eyeballs is because the studio is playing an Avengers movie. Whatever movie, studio doesn't get a cut of that.
Right.
So then they're like, well, if you're not going to give us a piece of this, we're going to raise our rental prices because the budgets for these movies are so expensive. They have to have a mutual agreement. Like, if you're playing movies, let's not bid. Let's not have blind bids to get your trailer up on screen with Quiet Place 2. Like, we should promote the movie. And things should change, but I do think that once more and more people become vaccinated and there's more of a confidence to go out, I think people are going to go out. I think movie theaters could have a boon because people are kind of tired staying indoors. Then we'll start to think about box office because then that perpetuates, the reports on box office also perpetuate business. Go ahead.
Real quick, I just want to say, I have my only doubts of people going out. Why I think that movie theaters are iffy, where I'm not confident to say this. I think travel industry, and I think I said this on a previous episode too, I think travel industry is going to be at an all-time high after this. I think people lost a full year of their lives. and they're gonna think of it. And a lot of people have probably had thought process like I do. I lost a year, and I put off like that trip that I wanted to take to, I don't know, Japan, or that
Yeah.
trip that I wanted to do to New Jersey, whatever the case may be. Yeah, everyone has different things that they want to do. I think there's a weird feeling, and I think this is where like industry people are kind of like this. There's a little bit of a disconnect with it. Is that we are sitting in a house, and we are watching content constantly. We're watching news, we're watching TV shows, we're watching movies, we're looking at screens, watching trailers on YouTube, looking at whatever the latest viral video, whatever it is. We're staring and we're engaging in content all the freaking time. So to me, the element that's lacking is that engagement amongst peers, amongst family, amongst friends. So when you think of a movie theater in the way that you and I want to go to a movie theater and appreciate it, we want to sit in the dark. We want to watch that movie. We want the movie to wash over us. We want to feel the crowd, the intensity from everyone around us, or the laughs from everyone around us.
Absolutely.
But we're not interacting with one another. And I think that's the element where I'm not so sure that movie theaters are going to be the ones that are going to come back. I think they're going to take the longest to come back out of all the things. I think bowling's going to come back quicker and all that other stuff.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you about those other things, but I think movies are going to come back too, because you say you don't interact, but that collective experience says something. I mean, it's not unlike concerts will come back, sporting events people will get out to. I think that people want to see these movies, and we'll go back to some semblance of normalcy once we feel, or I know I'll go back once I feel comfortable.
Yeah.
After I get vaccinated, who the hell knows when that'll be, at least I'll be able to go outside with a little bit more of confidence. I don't care that I have to wear a mask, And I think the more and more people who start to feel that way will start to go out to movies. They'll go out to restaurants. They'll go to Disneyland. They will do the travel. So I think it'll eventually come back. I think we'll start to see that this year because go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, do you think that's going to happen for all movies, or is it movies that I feel like are like the tentpoles where people are like, where it's a group experience?
Yeah, no, I think it'll be for all movies because people want to see a Nomadland, right? No. Because there's a faction. There's a percentage of people who want to go see an art house movie, right? This is regardless of whether you or I like the movie, and they'll go. They're going to go to the landmark. They're going to go to their art house to see it. Art house movies will pick up once people feel comfortable. I think across the board, it'll slowly pick up. Now, look. I think the big thing is, because this transitions, I think, into the other topic, is like the other news we got is that New York is now looking to reopen their cinemas. Okay. And, at a reduced capacity.
25%.
Right. And that'll eventually go up to 40%, 50%. But it's a big deal. Why? Because it means that Los Angeles isn't too far behind of doing the same thing. So again, we're in the midst of people getting vaccinated, and I think like this is the slow build. Like it's gonna be like a slow boil until we get it up to that simmer and then to a boil. But if New York is saying, "Hey, we're opening theaters," I know Boston. I keep tabs in my hometown. They're already looking at opening like a lot of indoor dining, things like that. It's eventually going to come here in Los Angeles. I'm sorry to be so like geolocation centric right now, but it's where I live and I pay attention to local news. There was an article that came out, I believe LA Times, that was saying, we're hoping to get enough vaccine, and I think this is for the whole country too, but here in Los Angeles, Garcetti said, we're going to be getting enough vaccine where we will be able to lift the restrictions as to who gets a vaccine, meaning it'll be open for everybody, right? And I think that is when it's going to be available, and we'll just feel more confident. We'll be able to go out and do everything, Scott, not just like movies, but I think everything's going to.
I think so too. I think in due time, and when people have options, all I'm saying with this argument is that I think when you give someone the opportunity of like, hey, would I rather go out for dinner and drinks with friends who I haven't seen for a while, or go sit in a movie theater with them? For the first couple of months after this, I think that option. It's the same as like if you said, I would even say Disneyland, or I don't know, anything. I think anything where you can actually spend that time interacting the entire time is going to have more of a impact and more of a rebound quicker than things where like you have to sort of be quiet when you're doing it. I'm not saying there's nothing about getting together with a group of friends going to the movies. It's an amazing experience. I miss it very much. I miss going to press screenings every week and seeing everyone and standing around in a huge freaking circle afterwards and saying like, oh man, that freaking movie sucked. Or like, oh, that was great. Like, I miss that aspect of it, or all of us going to dinner afterwards. You, me,
yeah. See, you just said it. Why? Why can't you do both?
We go see those movies for free. People are going. It's a pandemic. People are not financially secure right now. They're going to prioritize where they're going to put their money, and I think they're going to put that money towards things that they really, really want to do. To them, they can watch a movie now on Netflix, on HBO Max. It's probably not going to be a top priority. That's all I'm basically saying. I'm saying that when you look at the priorities of things, right. I don't know if movie theaters are going to rush to the top. Going to Disneyland, 100%. I think people.
Oh yeah.
Disneyland, Six Flags, Knott's, all that stuff's going to turn around very. Very
absolutely. But I think movie theaters are going to be in there as well. I really do. I think that even families are going to go. Hey kids, you want to go to the movies? Let's get out of the house. Let's go get some popcorn. I mean, listen, I can't wait. So maybe I'm just being my one-sided, raw movie-going experience. But I really do think that once the confidence level is there, people are going to return. And they will return to going out to dinner and a movie, or movie and dinner. Once, it'll happen. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to happen next week. Christmas time will be a good gauge. The holidays will be a good gauge. I don't expect it to be like it was.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's going to be a slow boil for a lot of things. Movie theaters as well. So.
Yeah. One last thing, and then we're definitely going to move on from this.
Yeah. Sure.
Get to the one other story we need to talk about.
Sure.
And that is, on average, and someone read me this statistic this week somewhere. On average, a normal person goes to the movie theater 4 times a year. That ties into my whole entire argument, because, and I did a poll of this just so full disclosure for anyone who doesn't know this. I don't just do this for a living. Unfortunately, this doesn't pay the bills. I have to do other jobs. And one of the things that I've been doing during the pandemic is I've been working for Amazon and Whole Foods as a driver to deliver groceries.
That's why you love every Amazon movie.
Oh, that is why.
No, I'm kidding.
You're taking care of me. Good job. What I wanted to say about that is, I don't know why, but randomly a couple of weeks ago when I went into my Whole Foods to pick up one of a bunch of orders, I decided to ask everyone who I interact with on a regular basis, before this, what was the last movie you saw? And one person said Bad Boys for Life, which is like, okay, that's not too bad. Someone said Black Panther, going back to whenever that was. And then someone else said, you ready for this? The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
How old is that person?
Probably about 50.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
so,
right.
I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about that, but that's something that I think a lot of these shows, including ours, is missing, is that I can tell you, even my friends back east who like, my friend Woe, who loves Mortal Kombat, right? He like literally went apeshit when he saw that trailer. I know you didn't like the trailer, but he was like, "Oh my god!" Like he's like, "That looks like it amazing." And I was like, "Are you gonna watch it?" And he's like, "Whenever, maybe, but like I'll definitely watch it when it comes to cable." He was telling me about the movie that we love, the Paul Feig movie with Anna Kendrick.
Yeah.
A Simple Favor.
Yeah, love that movie.
Never saw it in the theater. Never saw it.
Yeah.
He hasn't went to a movie. He hasn't went to a movie since the Power Ranger movie came out.
But that's not your okay. I mean, I did a report on this.
Yes, it is.
It's not the average moviegoer though. He's not that. He may be the average Joe. He's not the average moviegoer. There is a difference. I mean, I will share with you after the show. I will share with you a report that I did that actually had over 1,500 surveys that went out to people who, and it included men, women, family members. They are
LGBTQ community too, Demetri.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Yes. And it was all about, and they were average moviegoers, and the numbers would surprise you. I mean, we could talk about that more next week, or when we return. The average person is the average person, but a person who enjoys going to the movies, and I'm not saying us, or even necessarily people who pay attention to watch the show. I'm just saying a person like, so what if they go see tentpole movies, right? There's so many of them. That's more than 4 times a year. A person who, that's not necessarily your average moviegoer. Like I said, when I was with a company, we were data analytics, and we did a huge survey. And the survey was really about the movie-going experience. I was actually quite fascinated. The other fascinating thing about the thing, it was like 99.9% of those same people who went to the movies had Netflix.
Yeah, I believe it.
So,
to me, what I think it is, and I would be interested in seeing the data versus the type of movies that they saw. But if I had to bet money on this, I would put that the movies that those people you're talking about saw were the tentpole movies, the event movies, where like you get excited because when there's I remember, and this is the difference between living in LA. See, you've always lived in major areas, right? You've lived in Boston, you lived in LA. I've lived in like small suburban towns, like in Pennsylvania, and like. When I would go to a theater in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, or, I don't know, Macungie, Pennsylvania, it's a small town, and the movie theaters would be dead most of the time, minus if there was, again, I keep using Avengers, Justice League. I'll just use Justice League now.
Sure.
Justice League, the Snyder Cut, was playing on the big screen. Then all of a sudden, the movie theater would be packed that weekend.
Sure,
but
absolutely.
If a movie again, not to throw Nomadland underneath the bus, but if a movie like Nomadland was playing, you can walk in there, you probably be you and like 3 other people watching.
And that's the usher, the ticket taker, who's looking to make sure nobody snuck in or got in there by accident to make sure they get into the right. No, listen, Scott, you're 100% correct. There are the small towns, and they don't have the multiplex. So a movie like a No Man Land or even A Promising Young Woman, it's not going to play at the 2 screen. Like, they're going to be playing the Disney film, and they're going to be playing Black Widow.
Well, you can,
so go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and you can also tell how a movie's been doing during the pandemic by the type of release that it's getting on Blu-ray and digital, right? So,
Sure.
like, there has been, obviously, I don't even need to ask Focus how Promising Young Woman did, because I know how Promising Young Woman did. It does not have a 4K release. They
Right.
decided to
Not
not,
yet.
but they gave News of the World the 4K release, which therefore tells me News of the World performed better than Promising Young Woman.
Perhaps. I mean, sometimes a 4K release comes out later. Sometimes they're still trying to figure out if people even
That's what I'm saying.
care about 4K.
Oh, no, people don't. I mean, again,
Yeah.
you're going to. That's another conversation about like cinephiles versus like the average person. The average person doesn't fucking care if they're watching it on a computer monitor or like a 32-inch TV screen. It's literally, it depends. Whatever they have available,
Sadly,
they'll
yes.
watch it. They'll watch it, right?
Yep.
They're not worried about if it's a DVD, a Blu-ray, a 4K transfer, has Dolby Digital surround sound, whatever. The average person just is happy to see a movie. They want it. They go to Redbox, they get the DVD, whatever. They sign on Netflix. They have no idea what their sound system is or any of that stuff. So anyway, let's move on to the topic, the final topic of today, and obviously it's this Sunday. We got the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. Oh, controversy. Oh, surprise. So no, it says it has 0 black members, and then just yesterday, after the investigation, Golden Globes voters vowed to bring in black members. Again, box checking. My God, box checking. How about let's talk about how many members are Latino? How many people belong in the LGBTQ community? How many people are disabled? Inclusion, baby. Let's talk about inclusion in general and bringing voices in to make offset what's currently there.
Yeah. Are you surprised though?
No, I'm not.
I mean,
I'm not. I wish I was, but I'm not.
The HFPA, look, they're mired in controversy. Even before, in the 80s where they gave Pia Zadora an award for Best Newcomer, and she just ended up on billboards in pink cars, saying that was paid for. They're always mired in controversy. I've talked about the HFPA ad nauseum. It's, I have nothing more to add other than when I saw it, I'm not surprised. And then that response is, we'll have more black people come in. So that means, probably some like old whitey is going to get kicked out or something. I don't know what the hell they're going to do. But again, I don't understand like how they became such a powerhouse. I really don't. It's, what did we talk about? 90 members on that board?
Yeah, 90 to 95. I forgot the exact number.
Yeah, and
real quick.
Man, do they wield a ton of power, man. They can make publicists shiver, like tremble. And I've never seen publicists tremble.
Reported. Current count is 87 members. That is actually a recent report from 7 hours ago.
Yeah. So
which
87
which
members.
Dropped because I swore it was 90 something when we looked it up the other day.
Yeah, I thought so too.
A couple people. I don't want to talk about this too much, but the problem ultimately is this industry is so busted. And this is coming from a freaking white guy. I'm just going to say it as it is. It wants to highlight groups when it's like the in thing to do. And honestly, because of Black Lives Matter, because of the movement that has happened over the last year, black people have been moved to the forefront of this movement. And I'm happy for them. I celebrate it. It's about fucking time. But at the same time, this is not inclusion. Inclusion means you bring together everyone. And the black guy comes in and is welcome and is treated the same way alongside the white guy or the Latino guy or the Asian guy or the Indian guy or the person in a wheelchair. We focus so heavily on one particular group as an industry that like the messaging just gets lost. And I say this, and I'm proud of this organization because of the fact it is naturally inclusive. When you look at the membership, you look at their interest, you look at the body types, you look at the disabilities, it's natural. It's what you would see in a major city. And what Hollywood trying to do is they're trying to fill quotas, check boxes, make people feel like their voices have been heard. But at the end of the day, they don't really fucking care. And I'm sorry if I'm saying that. They just don't fucking care. Because if they did, we would have done this all along.
What I can say, and a credit to you and Ashley for starting up the Hollywood Critics Association, is, you know, the entrance is by merit. It's by what have you done within the industry as a reviewer, a responsible reviewer, and, you know, being whether you're LGBTQ or disabled, that ends up, while it's a factor, merit is first. And that is important, because otherwise you are just checking off boxes. To have people come in without experience or merit to do that. So that's, you know, it's something to take pride in. And I don't disagree with you regarding Hollywood. You know, the HFPA, not surprised in the least. Listen, they're an elitist. They're an elitist group, like I said, and to be redundant, that wields like a lot of power that I just don't understand. And if people stood up to them more, you know, that this wouldn't happen. But nobody stands up to them. Somebody thinks that they're an amazing marketing, great publicity kind of thing. I think you should focus on other award shows, to be honest with you, not the Golden Globes. Jesus Christ, look at, you know, you want to include hosts? Well, change up your hosts every now and then. Like Amy Poehler, Tina Fey one year, back to Ricky Gervais. The following year, Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, back to Ricky Gervais. I mean, why don't you vary that up a bit? Yeah. You know, if you want to like really be more inclusive, get other comedians. Like these there aren't 3 people in the world who can host the Golden Globes, albeit they do a good job. You know, I know that they pride themselves on being a lot looser than the Academy Awards, and people can get drunk and you never know what's going to happen during the Golden Globes. I have a pretty good idea what's going to happen during the Golden Globes this year.
Yeah, me too.
You know, unless people are drinking heavily before getting their awards, which I would hope. They need to change, but they should have changed a long time ago, and nobody. That's the bottom line.
Industry, you know, it's funny, you know, like we in last week's episode we talked about, and we also tied in from the week before. We talked a lot about the idea of acknowledging your actions,
right,
in the past, and kind of like doing something. And we talked about how actors, actresses, whatever, people in the studios, directors, they're never going to come forward with their bad behavior, right? That's never going to happen. Like if they did something, unless they get called out about it, they're never going to come out and be like, you know what, in college, you know, I got drunk and I sort of made out with a girl and she didn't agree with it, you know, and I just want to tell you all right now that happened, and I just in case it ever comes out, I just want you to know about it. Like, that's fantasy land. That's not happening. So when you look at an organization as big and as powerful as the Hollywood Foreign Press, they're not going to do anything until they get called out for it. And what they're going to do is they'll do something, and they'll do the minimum to meet the requirement So hopefully the press goes away. In a
Right.
year or two from now, we'll come back to this, and there'll be an article. We did an investigation, and they have improved the black membership by 15%. And, again, not talking about the rest of inclusivity, about how they don't have anyone else.
Right.
They'll just use it that, and then they'll kind of be like, yeah, we did it, guys. We did it. And then
We did.
20 years from now, there'll be a conversation about how they don't have any Indian Americans there. And then they'll do this whole thing over again, and we'll go through the same process, and there'll be shows like this talking about the same topic. And that's what Hollywood, it just repeats itself, and it goes over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, regarding the HFPA, I'm actually like to a point where I'm just tired of talking about their controversies. I mean, think about it. Think about in Hollywood, a governing body like that has so much controversy around it. Yeah, you can look at Oscar. Yeah, they have their controversies. Not like the HFPA. You want to look at SAG Awards? Maybe there's a controversy here or there. Not like the HFPA.
No, SAG doesn't have that problem, and you know why?
But I'm just like throwing
actors, right? So like that's the thing, right? If you're that's what was broken about award shows, right? It's people at the top who represent the groups are like old white people. So like essentially, unless you're building a membership in a group where you're kind of like looking at the industry and looking at Hollywood and kind of saying like, okay, so SAG doesn't have a problem, right? Because they have black actors, right? Denzel Washington, Don Cheadle, they have Zendaya, whoever it is, they're members of the organization. Yeah. You have, in the Directors Guild, you have John M. Chu in there, and you have Lee Isaac Chung, and you have Chloe Zhao. You have these members because those are the groups that accept the people that represent the industry as a whole.
Right. I was just using like examples, like all these other guilds, and by your own admission, by the way, is just to get it on record. I'm a middle-aged white guy. Not an old, middle-aged by your own admission. I accept that. That's okay. So, but yeah, I mean, the HFPA is just mired in controversy. Like, and you hear this, it's like, well, of course they are. Oh, of course they are. Nobody does anything about it. We still, publicists still bow down to them. So, I don't know if that'll ever change, but way to go, HFPA. You've done it again. You've gotten into the funnies.
I mean, and the bottom line is, at the end of the day, they're ultimately coming out with this story because the ratings are already going to be in the toilet on Friday.
Right.
I am going to tell you, Ashley, last night we saw a pizza commercial, and I said, oh, we're going to have that on Sunday. And she goes, what's Sunday? Why are we having pizza on Sunday? Completely forgetting our tradition of having pizza during Golden Globes. And the reason why she didn't forget about pizza, she literally forgot that the fucking Golden Globes were happening.
Right,
and that's the industry right now in a nutshell.
My dog agrees.
I agree.
Brady agrees. Yeah, that's why he's barking.
Nobody understands.
He doesn't care either.
No one understands that only people within the industry are paying attention to this stuff right now.
Right.
And it's gonna. I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it next week when we're on this show and we talk about the ratings. When they come out and they say one of the lowest rated shows or the lowest rated Golden Globes of all time, no question.
Shocker. Yeah.
Shocker. So I know they're trying to save face right now. They're trying to do whatever they can to kind of build any positive buzz towards the show. And we'll see how it goes. I mean, as always, I guess this is the problem, right? Like, at the end of the day, people within the industry will keep going there. Most people will keep covering it. Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Entertainment Weekly.
Yep.
It's national. International. I mean, we're going to keep focusing on it. Talent's going to keep going. So that's why, again, Hollywood is broken because they want change, but they don't stick their nose, they don't walk away from things. They just kind of say, all right, yeah, of course, you've been around, I don't know. I give up. I give up with a lot of this stuff because um, I've been preaching about it for a long time in the industry.
Right.
And it's when I see stuff like this happen, I just sort of go, I shake my head and I just say, of course, it all makes sense.
Right.
And then they're going to do something and then the conversation will stop. And that's what happens with everything. That there's never a long conversation. It happens, conversation goes away, and then we move on like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
What's for dinner tonight, honey?
Pizza.
That's right. There you go. So, all right. So, boy, that was a fun show. We got into a lot of heavy debates about movie theaters and good old Golden Globes.
Good old Golden Globes, box office reporting, Paramount, another Plus streaming service.
So let us know in the comment box below. If you're watching this on YouTube, Twitter, just share the show. Let us know what you think about it. Your feedback is always greatly appreciated. Everyone who was in the chat today, I've been glancing over, reading all your comments. Demetri and I, if you follow us, when they
didn't pop up today, Scott. What happened?
They were here.
Okay.
There was a lot of them. I was kind of reading them. And I also know that we show a comment, we'll get sidetracked for like 10 minutes talking about that comment. So I was reading them and I kind of was like, oh, if I put this up on the screen, we're going to go on.
You didn't share.
I didn't share. I'm sorry. But you can go back on YouTube and watch it, and then you can read the comments yourself and then comment
You get the middle-aged fist.
All right, guys. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen, kids of all ages. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Trending in Hollywood. We will be back next Friday, same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.
Bye, folks.